Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our very long-running series of videos that we're doing on classic films, the 52 must-see movies and why they matter. Stephen always corrects me on that because we will be talking about why they are essential and which kind of why they matter. But we get all of the films from this book here, written by Jeremy Arnold. With a foreword by the late great Robert Osborne, and this contains 52 must-see movies, and all of the films that you've seen on all of these videos come from this. And today we are talking about one that I find to be the most obscure of anything we've talked about, and that is Gun Crazy from 1950. But before we get into it, I'm joined once again by my friend in Filmdom, and that is Stephen Billings.
Yes, Filmdom. Love Filmdom. Gun Crazy. You're right, man. This is obscure. I never really heard of it until, and I mean, I'd heard about it before we started doing the series, but I'd never seen it, and I had to watch it for this episode. And it's an interesting little ditty. It's a little it's a fun little movie. We'll get in more into my thoughts on the film and whether I really think it should be in this book. I'm not saying I'm going to crap on this movie, but it is a very interesting one. Let's start talking about this thing.
Yeah, it is the most interesting of all the films we've talked about because, like I said, it is the most obscure. It's a film. For those of you who haven't seen this series, before we get into it, we will be spoiling the heck out of this film. So if you're afraid of spoilers, run away now while you can, or else forever be spoiled about Gun Crazy. Like I said, this film came out in 1950. It's a very interesting film because it's not a film that came from a major studio, not a Warner Brothers, a Paramount, Columbia, or anything like that, or MGM as well. But it came from a company called King Brothers Productions, and they were predominantly doing more or less B pictures at the time. So this is one of their films that kind of escaped that whole B picture stigma. It kind of really sticks out and is in this book for a reason. Many people do really like this film. It's a bit of a film noir as well. It comes out during the classic film noir era, but it's also like a crime film as well as a drama. And it doesn't star any major actors at the time. No Jimmy Stewart's, no Spencer Tracy's, none of that. We have the actor of John Dahl, who many of you may remember, who is most remembered for being in the Hitchcock film Rope. He plays Brandon, who was kind of the whole mastermind behind this grand plan in Rope. Jimmy Stewart, you think you were God, Brandon, that Brandon. And also his partner in crime, literally, is portrayed by Peggy Cummins, another actress who is not very well known. So yeah, it's film that is completely under the radar in almost every aspect. I personally hadn't heard about it until about a year ago. I believe last summer, Turner Classic Movies did their Summer of Darkness, where they had all film noirs. Not all film noirs, but certain days they would just screen film noirs, and they would have Eddie Muller be the host, who is known as the Czar of Noir, and he would come on and he would talk about these film noir movies. He would be the host, and we would watch them, and it was very interesting because I saw a lot of film noirs film noir films. That's how you say it. That I hadn't seen before, and Gun Crazy was one of them. And I liked this film for what it is. Like Steven said, it's the most peculiar on this list because I think there are better movies than it. There are better movies, I think, in the film noir genre that came out at its time, but it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a very dark movie.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think I'm with you. I don't think it's a bad movie, and I think it's just it kind of takes me. I'm taken back by the fact that it's not one I've really heard of until recently, and watching it, until you started talking about how it's made more by an independent studio. That to me maybe is our answer to why it's in this book, is because maybe it's like the independent, it's like the Pulp Fiction of that time in a way, where it was like a movie made out of the studio system that people really liked, and it stayed in the zeitgeist even today. People were putting it in their books, in this book right now, thinking it's important. So I think maybe that's why it's in this book, and why it's essential is because it is an example of an independent film being successful.
Yeah, it is regarded critically also very well. A lot of critics love it. Just getting into the plot itself, it is based on both the character portrayed by John Dahl, who is known as Barton Tar, I believe his name is, but they call him Barry in the film. They call him Bart in the film, and Annie Laurie Starr. And basically, this film starts out with Bart as a child, and he is breaking into the store to steal this gun. And then it moves into him being caught by a police officer right there on the street because he slips in the rain and the gun falls right at the feet of this cop, who guess who's just patrolling at the time, who knew? And there he is. So he ends up in court, and the judge is kind of, is kind of not grilling him, but like he's getting testimony from his friends, getting testimony from his sister, who seemingly takes care of him and I guess is raising him as well. And we come to learn that he has been obsessed with guns ever since he was even younger than his young age is now. He is always using BB guns and stuff like that. But he's never, the only time he's ever actually killed something is when he shot like a baby chick, I believe. And
I mean, he that's something he does after, I think, or was it before that?
The flashback, yeah, because the friends come in and say, yeah, we were there. No, that was when they showed him he wasn't going to shoot that mountain lion or that was there. This is when he was talking about, yeah, the only time I've ever killed anything was that baby chick. And then the friends come in and say, yeah, he's never killed anything. There was that one time we were hanging out in the mountains and there was a mountain lion and he couldn't shoot it. Basically, the kid was having almost a PTSD moment where he was remembering how horrible he felt after killing that baby chick with his BB gun.
Yeah, it's very much like it's an example of him losing his innocence a little bit. Like finding out about death for the first time, and that was very interesting character moment that ends up kind of feeding through the rest of the movie. With his character, and it's great. It's one of the things I'll say is that I feel like that the Bart character is a very interesting character, and he's my favorite character of the film. So,
he is the main character in the film. I mean, the film revolves around him, and what ends up happening is the judge sends him away to some reform school. I guess he says it's a school for him that's out of town for him to go there, and basically we get a flash forward. The film picks up in a flash forward where he is now out of this reform school. He actually went into the army, and he's actually coming back to town. He's coming back to his old town. He's seeing his sister. He's hanging out with his friends, and they're out in the mountains, shooting, shooting at the glass bottles like they used to do. And we find out that his gun obsession has not gone away. Sending him to whatever school he went to, whether it was reform school or not, didn't really work. And he also was sent to the army, where you literally have to use a gun pretty much all the time. He pretty much said, yeah, I left the army because I got tired of teaching other people how to shoot, and I kind of just wanted to do it myself. That was kind of
I would say that the reform school definitely probably gave him some discipline. And then when he decided to go into the army, it was a way to funnel his obsession with guns through something positive, in the sense of teaching other people how to use guns properly. And of course, yeah, he got so good at shooting, and when he comes back to his hometown, his one friend becomes I think a newspaper man, and then the other friend's a cop.
Yeah, he's a sheriff.
Yeah.
His friend becomes the sheriff, and they decide they're gonna go to a carnival, a traveling carnival that's coming through town. And while he's there, he meets for the first time the woman who will be his partner in crime, and she is part of the carnival. She's kind of a cowgirl, if you will. You know, she's shooting targets and doing kind of feats like that to wow the crowd about her accuracy. And then the guy who's running it's like, you know, we'll give $500 to anyone who can best her. You know what I mean? It's $500, but you have to put up like $50 in collateral or something like
Well,
that.
and let me say, this whole thing is like super. Like, I don't know anybody that would do this ever. Like literally, they're the you know they shoot at targets. I get that, but then they allow for the person they've never met before
Yeah.
to shoot near their head. Like
Yeah, yeah,
that makes no sense to me.
yeah. You know, they up the ante because you know once it's just shooting at targets. You know, the target's close. You know, rapid fire shooting at that target, and then they have them put on this crown of like of candles, not candles, but like wicks, if you will. And at each end there's like five of them or however many there are. They go around the head, right? And he's got to put it on. She's got to shoot, and she misses the last one, and then she has to put that on. And I'm with Steve, and I'm like, I'm not having a stranger shoot around my head. If he misses an inch, either way, I'm getting shot somewhere. You know what I mean? And I love how the whole time he has this big, goofy grin on his face because he's just enamored with this woman. He's enamored that she seems to be as equipped with guns as he is. Her ability seems to rival his. He's probably never come across that before. So we also get another and now we move past that moment. He ends up winning that actually because he ends up hitting all the target, all the things around the head. But then we get another kind of transition to where he's now part of the carnival. You know, he decided to join it because I'm guessing, one, because he's a hell of a shooter, and two, because he's enamored by this woman and he doesn't want to be away from her. That's
And
my guess.
he doesn't have a job, so.
And he probably doesn't have a job. And I mean, I don't know how much carnivals pay, but I guess it's steady work, you know. So he's traveling around with them, very briefly, seemingly. We're not really quite sure how time moves in this movie, really at all. A lot of montage in this movie. And so he's traveling around with them, and he's gonna go, you know, meet with her one night. I guess they're gonna go out on a date or whatever. I guess they do this frequently, and he runs into the dude who runs the carnival. He's the owner, and he's like, "Hey, you know that I know what you're doing." He says something like, "Oh yeah, I have a claim on her." I'm like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? Claim on her? Was she land?" Right? He's like, "Oh yeah, me and her, you know, that." And it's like, this guy's like bullshit like crazy. So that guy ends up going to her tent, trying to get a little handsy with her, and then Bart walks in and he sees what's happening, and he's like, he's not leaving. So he ends up shooting at him. He takes a shot at him and breaks the mirror behind the guy. And they end up getting fired from the carnival, lo and behold. Lo and behold, when you shoot at your boss, they fire you. I mean, it could have been worse. He could have called the cops. But, you know, I guess they got off easy. So they decide they're gonna be together now. They're gonna go get married in the first town that has a justice of the peace in it, and you know they have their honeymoon. There's this lovely montage. They have the honeymoon, the romance. They're going here, they're going there, they're gambling, dancing all night, and then they realize, oh wait, we don't have any money. We don't have any money left. So what are we gonna do? There's this one shot of them outside of a pawn shop, and I'm like, are they gonna sell something? But then it kind of moves on to something else, and then there's this scene. There's this scene that where the film is starting to take shape now. Now we get into the meat of this film, where basically uh, the Annie character wants him to rob somebody. She wants him to be a stick-up man. She wants him to be a dangerous man. You know.
Well, I think also, you know, when we get this scene back in your dressing room, you know, you got this. We know that she's this kind of tough lady, like not very much, not like a lot of female characters at this time. She's very tough. She's very, you know, does what she wants. She's, you know, aggressive towards the guy. You know, like says, "Don't touch me. I'll kill you." You know, like
Yeah,
and yeah, and I think that when he stepped in and shot at the boss, I think that informed her to think that maybe he would be into doing something like, robbing places, like that he's dangerous, that's the kind of man that he can be. And that's not really who he is. He's not somebody that wants to hurt people.
No, he doesn't like to kill people. He doesn't like to shoot at people. He doesn't even want to be doing all this robbing, but basically she tells him that he has this idea that he's going to get a job. He's going to work at Remington. I don't know if that's the gun manufacturer or whatever. And it's like, oh, $40 a week. And he's like, oh, I can live on that. She's like, no, I can't. I want this. I want that. I want, I want more than what you can provide, essentially. She's attacking him as a provider, really attacking him as a man as well. And she basically says, you better kiss me goodbye, because when you get back, I won't be here. And that's when he reluctantly decides to start robbing people. And we get another montage of them holding up stores, holding up this, running away. And then we get I love the newspaper clippings, couple robs whatever on the run, stuff like that.
Kind of Bonnie and Clyde-esque.
Yeah, I'm just getting to that. This film is very much a precursor of Bonnie and Clyde. It's a precursor of Bonnie and Clyde. It's also a precursor to a movie called The Honeymoon Killers as well, which is very similar, except Bonnie and Clyde did murder people and stuff, but so did this couple here in Gun Crazy. But it was mostly
it was her.
It was her.
Yeah. He never wanted to ever shoot a gun. He would just use it as a way to scare people. Yeah. But as we get deeper into it, and there's, even though they're robbing these places, they're not making enough money to really achieve what they were setting out to do. So, and he's already done with it. He's like, I want to stop doing this. I want to go straight. And she's like, look, one more job.
Yeah, it's always that. It's always the one last big job so that we can never do this again. Yeah. That's the one that ends up being the most complicated. They have this idea that they're going to rob this
the payroll from this
meatpacking company. I guess that's what it looked like to me. And yet again, time in this film really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And so they get jobs there. Apparently, he's working down in the butcher shop, the meat place, packaging meat and stuff like that. But she's working in the payroll department, in the payroll office, as a desk job, a secretary, whatever. And I'm wondering, man, you really have to. They're working the long con here. You're really getting into it. Trying to make it as perfect as you can. And they decide they're going to rob it kind of in broad daylight. I mean, it's kind of a risky thing to do. He comes in the office under the pretense that he's delivering some steaks to the boss. Of course, that's all nonsense. And he walks in there. She closes the door, and she pulls out the gun first. And she sticks up the secretary, the boss, and I think there's another guy in there. Get down on the floor. We're here to take the money. The usual. And then as they're turning to leave, they got the money. They're turning to leave, and the secretary woman hits the alarm bell, and then she turns, shoots her. I think she shoots somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's. Or does she end up shooting the guard on the way out?
No, she shoots. I think there was a guard in the room.
Okay, I know she shot the woman, and then when they exit, they knock the guard out.
When they're in the car, they do
another shot.
Yeah,
I thought it was her shooting him.
Yeah. She shot a guard on their way out.
Yeah, she shot the guard on the way out. Okay, and then they get away, but this idea is that they're gonna take two separate cars, separate, so that the cops are looking for a couple, but if they're just individuals, they won't get caught. But they decide that they love each other so much, they can't do it. Can't be apart. Two criminals with hearts of love can't be apart. They cannot be apart, and they decide that they're gonna stick together and go. They want to go to California. They go to California first, so that they can end up going to Mexico, which is their grand plan. But the problem is that they keep using the money they stole in this heist, and the cops know the serial numbers. on the money. So as they're using it, they're just basically tipping off the police where they are. You know, they're just leaving a trail right to them. And they decide the night before they're going to escape to Mexico, they decide to go out dancing. They're going to go out dancing, have a nice time, or whatever she suggests this. To go out dancing, have a nice time, and the cops are closing in. They're closing in on them, and once again, they have to make a grand escape. They have to make a
Yeah,
grand escape from the cops, and that's when we get yet again another montage of them on the run.
yeah, and also, one thing too is that, when they did that last heist, he didn't realize that she'd end up killing anybody. He finds out later in the newspaper that two people had died during that heist, and obviously this plays. I mean, he doesn't want to kill anybody. Like, he never wanted to hurt anybody. It was about getting the money, but he keeps letting her string him along, and because he's so and that's kind of part of the film noir aspects of this movie is this obsession, this infatuation with this woman that's obviously bad for him.
Oh yeah,
yeah, she's the femme
yeah.
fatale of this movie.
Oh, most definitely a femme fatale. I mean, literally, when we get to the end of the movie, she's his ultimately death. She ultimately leads directly to his death, and to her own death as well. She is someone who is not she's not terribly fleshed out in the film, but she serves her purpose as we're discussing it here, as the femme fatale, as kind of the aggressor in the relationship. He's more reserved, and she kind of strings him along a lot. They in the last sequence of the film, they escape back to his hometown. They kind of try to shack up with his sister, who is there with her kids, and the friend and his old buddies kind of have this inkling, oh, maybe he's back here. So they go to confront him, and the relationship from the beginning of the movie is completely different now. He is no longer that same person from earlier. The relatively level-headed guy, with a smile on his face, just shooting guns in the mountain and hanging out with his friends. He is now rather nerve-wracked. He's nerve-wracked. He's stressed out because he's in way too deep, and he's just trying to survive at this point. So he leaves his friends. He says, yeah, I'm not giving up. I'm not going to surrender. And he drives up to the mountains. And this is where we have the final climactic moments of the film. And lo and behold, they try to hide out in the mountains. And there's a lovely sequence at the end of this film where they're hiding out in these reeds or in this tall grass. And there's a fog around, and it's very misty. You know what I mean? Very mystifying as well. There's a lot of just great aesthetic and great ambiance and great just feel about the scenes where they're essentially lost in this mist, and ultimately they say, come out or we're gonna come get you. Come out, we're gonna come get you. And he's ready to give up. I honestly believe that he's ready to completely walk out there, throw down his gun, and just give up. And it's her that she can't do it. She's like, up.
Yeah, she stands up. She's like, I will kill. She's like, I will kill you guys. And he can tell that it's his friends coming up, and he ain't gonna let that happen. Yeah, she's not gonna let her kill his friends.
Not only that, but it's like she is, by her standing up, it's like she's gonna get killed. She's gonna get killed, and he actually ends up shooting her, and then he stands up and he gets shot, and they both lie dead next to each other. Camera and the two friends walk over, and the camera pans out, and we have the end of the movie. And what this film is commenting on is a lot. Like we said, film noir elements are there. This idea of obsession, this idea of doomed love or self-destructive love is in the film as well. It's very interesting that Dalton Trumbo, who was blacklisted at the time, was actually doing work at the production company that this film was produced from, and he actually restructured the story. He rewrote the story of the film to make it have the more doomed romance angle to it. That was him putting it into it. At the time, he couldn't do anything in Hollywood, but he was still getting some scripts through. We've recently discussed Roman Holiday, which was a film that he he wrote the story for that, but it would have to be under someone else's name. In this film, two other people got credit for the film as well, and not Dalton Trumbo. It was McKinley Cantor, uh, yeah, McKinley Cantor and Millard Kaufman, um, who got originally got the credit, and now of course Dalton Trumbo is getting all the credit for all the stuff he did while blacklisted, including this film as well. I was mentioning to Stephen earlier, if you watch the film Trumbo, starring Bryan Cranston, when he goes to the King Brothers production company, you can see the Gun Crazy poster there in the background. I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that movie. So it's kind of an interesting thing in that. But yeah, this film is good. Like we've said, it's a good movie about this idea of obsession leading to your death, essentially, and it's also very contemplative, contemporary. I mean, it's contemporary because, not to get too political, there's a lot of people in the United States who have an obsession with guns. That seems to be part of our culture now. Guns have become much more sophisticated since Gun Crazy came out, and the obsession has never really gone away from that. So it's kind of very contemporary from that perspective, and it's also, and the film is also commenting on an almost a raw emotion. A very raw emotion of this film. The idea of getting some satisfaction about doing something that's wrong, that's against the law. Robbing people at gunpoint can be very exhilarating. The adrenaline in the moment can be a hell of a rush, a hell of a drug. So the film also is kind of commenting on that as well. And good to be bad sometimes. Sometimes good to be bad. It's an underrated film in my opinion. But like I said, Steven and I are kind of interested why it's on a list of 52 must-see movies. I think it's a must-see movie for the fact that if someone tells you that if someone didn't tell you about it, I don't think you would necessarily know about it, because I think it's that under the radar when it comes to classic movies.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was looking at the rest of the movies on this list, and then if I wanted to throw in one obscure good must-see movie, this is if I was the guy that did this, that was probably what they did. They were like, let's throw in one that was maybe nobody's heard of, that and this is that one. I feel like that they were like, this has enough qualities about it that make it relevant, and we're gonna throw it in there because nobody's heard of it.
Yeah, it's like what? Yeah, because the rest of the movies on the list, as you've seen, are big name movies. Seven Samurai, Ben-Hur, Roman Holiday, Citizen Kane, Gone with the Wind. These are all on here. We all know these movies. I mean, these movies, you even know them even if you haven't seen them. But Gun Crazy, oh, what's that? That sounds interesting. What's that? That's what I like to call a deep cut. That's a deep cut. But yeah, I would still say it is an essential movie to watch if you want to check out something that is different than some of the other essential movies on this list, or must-see movies on this list. But yeah, any final words about this movie? Because I think we've kind of covered it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's even though I don't know that I would say it needs to be in this book, it's not a bad movie. It's something that I think, like you said, is still very contemporary. It's got a lot of things about it that you didn't see in movies at that time, and
No.
it's got a lot of things about it that I thought were interesting. And like I said, I really liked the main character, Bart. His character was my favorite character, and yeah, I mean, it's got some really good direction too. I thought the direction was pretty good in the movie too. The most interesting negative I could say about it is, like we've been hinting throughout, there's no sense of time in this movie. It kind of breezes through the movie without really giving you a sense of time. That's the only kind of negative I would say about it. But other than that, it's a nice little classic film that definitely has some relevance. So
yeah. So if you like this video, make sure you check out all the other ones we've been doing. But before we let you go, you can follow myself on my YouTube channel, Cabzilla Productions, as well as my Twitter handle at Cabzilla06. Steven, where can they follow yourself?
You can find me on Film Club Central on YouTube, or you can go and find me also Film Club Central on Facebook, Instagram, or you can find me Stephen Billings 16 on Instagram.
Yeah, and you can subscribe to this channel here from our friend Dan Skip Allen, who is the mastermind behind all of these videos here on Best Damn Movie Show YouTube channel. And follow and also watch the other series of videos we do called Top 5 Weekly, where Steven, myself, Dan, or another person will come in. We will discuss a list of five things of whatever topic we feel like doing that week. But yeah, this has been another video, so we will see you next time discussing another classic film that is a must-see movie.